Well, let's kick off here, and if people trickle in, that's just fine. But thank you, panelists, for joining us today for the group. Obviously, this is Gear West, and welcome. We're glad you could join us. Be sure to keep following us, and if you're interested in other events, we like to bring folks in from now and again to speak, and we also have a lot of how-tos for folks, so be sure you're following us on your socials. I'm Erin. My team does the marketing for Gear West, but more so I'm a runner and have met most of you guys before in the past in races and on trails and at training runs and things like that. So really excited to hear from you all today about your most recent adventure, Cocodona 250. Let's see, what else did I want to say? I think that's mainly it. We'll do a panel discussion, and then at the end you guys can ask questions. So be sure to think of those along the way. Well, first what I'd like to do is ask each one of you runners, how long have you lived in Minnesota? And before Cocodona, what would your most challenging race have been? And so we'll start with you, Neil.
Okay. Minnesota my whole life, so what is that, almost 45 years. But I guess I didn't start running till 2011, I think. So I was late to the sport or adventure. Most difficult, I would have to say it would have been a race called Adventure Quest by Andy and Kim Hollock. And it was, looking back on it, it would have been around 2011. I had only done a 5K before, so it was a 5-day stage race on the Spear Hiking Trail. And so I learned a lot, met a lot of new friends there very fast. So.
Awesome. And then, oh, I think you have your own mic.
Kind of back.
I'm Susie. I've lived in Minnesota for 9 years. The hardest race was my Superior 100 attempt in 2024, which I didn't finish. And I think hopefully I can go back and finish it in 2027.
And one question I forgot to add on, I'll come back to you too, Neil, is now that you've done Cocodona, is that the hardest?
I hope so.
Yeah, looking back on it, I mean, it's all relative. So, usually your first race, it seems, is, especially for the distance, is probably the hardest because you're learning so much. But as far as physical output goes, I would say Cocodona is up there for just the amount of, which I'll talk about later. I just thought I could sleep more, but that wasn't the case. So, yeah, hardest for physical output.
Great. Okay, Kate, how about you?
So my name's Kate, and I've lived in Minnesota since 2004. And prior to Cocodona, the hardest race I had ever done was the Tuscobia 80 mile back in, I think it was 2017, where the overnight low was 25 degrees below zero. And it was 80 miles pulling a sled down the state trail in Wisconsin in the middle of nowhere. And honestly, I think that still ranks as the hardest thing I've ever done, because at the end of the day, at 25 degrees below zero, it's like straight up dangerous. And I had to be able to keep moving to like not get frostbite. And so I came out of that without any frostbite, and sort of, and Cocodona is it's like a different animal. It's like apples and oranges. And so while this was very, very hard, it was a different kind of hard, and I never once felt like I was in danger. Whereas like the Tuscobia piece had a little bit of like the danger component because it was cold and the stakes were actually really high if I didn't keep moving. If I stopped in Cocodona, like, I don't know, my pacers would yell at me. So, like, it was just different. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. And it's still the hardest race you've done, you said?
Yes.
Gotcha. All right, now let's talk to our support folks. So we have pacers, and also some crewing probably happened, and definitely some volunteering. So I'd like to hear from each one of you. How long have you lived in Minnesota? And have you ever done a 200 or longer race yourself? If not, what is your longest? Jeff, you're going last. No one wants to go after you to say your longest race. And so let's start with you, Alicia.
For sure.
Yeah, tell us about yourself.
I'm Alicia. I've lived in Minnesota my whole life, and I've done Superior several times, so I don't know that I would say that's actually my hardest.
When you say Superior, you mean
Superior
the
100, yeah.
Yep.
Actually, that's not true. That was my hardest. I cried for like the last 40 miles the first time I did it. I don't, people were asking what was wrong, and I was like, I don't know. And just cried.
They weren't ultra runners that even asked that question.
I wasn't at that point either, so.
Yeah.
And no, I have not done a 200 miler, and the answer is no, I'm still not going to do a 200 miler.
Great. I'm going to tag on another question. What made you decide to come and pace?
Oh, Kate?
Yeah.
She's my best friend.
Good answer.
When someone's got big dreams, you support them.
That's awesome. Cool. Elizabeth.
My name is Elizabeth, and I moved to Minnesota in 2009. That was the same year that I also ran my first marathon. I got into ultra running because ahead of my 30th birthday, I thought I should run 30 miles for it, so that was 10 years ago. I have not run a 200-mile race yet, but tomorrow is the lottery drawing for Cocodona 250, so hopefully my name gets pulled for that. A couple years ago, I ran Javelina 100, and last year I did Kettle Moraine 100 in Wisconsin. And I'm trying to think if we ended up doing Tuscobia the same year. I think we did it 2016, so we also got some nice cold weather too. Yeah.
Funny. We've had lots of these incredible races. And what made you decide to go out to Cocodona?
I had been interested in 200 milers maybe for the past couple years, and by chance there was a runner I saw on Instagram, a fellow non-binary division runner, who said they were going out to Cocodona 250 for their first 200, and we were chatting back and forth, and they said they needed some pacers. I'm like, I'll go out there. I'm kind of interested. I thought about volunteering, and so that's what I did. I got to volunteer at a couple spots, and turns out that runner ended up dropping about mile 60, but they were at one of the aid stations I visited. They said, if you wear your gear, you're going to find someone else to pace. And I did. I lucked out. I got to meet Susie at one of the aid stations I was volunteering at, and she was ready for another pacer at that point. So the rest is history.
Yeah, glad that worked out.
Yeah.
All right, Jeff.
Jeff Lewerke. I have lived in Minnesota since probably 2000, a couple years off where I lived in California. I've done a couple races that are beyond the 200-mile distance. Similar to Kate, I've dabbled in some of the winter ultra stuff, so 1,000 miles up in Alaska, and plan on going back this coming spring to do the same thing, another 1,000-mile trek across Alaska. So, yeah, so that would probably be my hardest race. But yeah, I guess my reason that I came out, similar to what Alicia said, when your friend asks you if you want to come out and have an adventure with them, you're just up for it. So I was all on board, and I'm trying to encourage Neil to sign up for more adventures so I can just tag along to the apartment for 3 miles.
I like this plan.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. And I'm like you guys, I paced a 200-miler in the past too, and it's, I wasn't thinking of dabbling in running in the race myself, and still am not, but it's a good thing to do and go support your buddies, and it ends up being an adventure for us as well, right? So awesome. All right, well, runners, let's talk about your races. First, let's just hear, how did you train? Let's kind of focus in on the training piece of it. And one of the reasons I asked you how long you've been in Minnesota is because we do have a strong contingent of Minnesota runners that tend to go and do well in other climates, even though it's very different from where we live. So I'm very curious what you did to steel yourself for the race. Neil, how about you?
Oh boy. I historically train really poor. But I've come to the realization, I talk about it a lot on the trail with my pacers and friends, and if I waited for the opportunity to train correctly, I would just never do events ever. And so I've just come to the realization that you're going to go out there and you're going to suffer, and that's part of the, I guess, adventure of it all. And so that's kind of how it's been. So what I have done when I'm able to, I have 3 lovely kids and a wife in the back room. And a lot of times, right, they're the ones at home are the ones that are actually having a harder time than when we're out there with all the responsibilities back at home. But so I work at a fire department. I can't go too far away from the station, so I do a lot of treadmill during the winters. I run at an incline. I have done, I think as we all know, have done these races, there's a lot of muscle memory. So if you are good at long distance hiking, or even the 50, 100 mile, I personally don't run after a certain point. I hit 30 miles maybe, 35, and then it becomes a hike. And so I like walking, so that's maybe part of it. But yeah, time on feet. I wish I could do more elevation training. I try what we can. Talking to some of the people out there, you just get jealous because they're like, yeah, I do Mount Eldon twice a week. I'm like, well, I have a 60-foot hill in French Park that you try to get your elevation on. I struggle with the descents, especially inflammation on, I think it's the anterior tibialis tendon, and I'm learning that I lead with my left foot downhill, and so I probably have to figure something out with how to mimic downhill training. Maybe I'll have to go back to that 50-foot hill and French run downhill versus up. But yeah, so there might be a question coming up where I'll talk about the hiking and stuff like that. But I would say, yeah, there was an inside joke that we've had for years is about faking. You used to be faking the 50-mile distance and then faking the 100s. Well, you can't fake the 100, and yeah, you just, as long as you're committed, to the mindset. And I personally don't believe that you have to do everything and train perfect to do it. Just show up. And maybe don't leave a spot that someone could have ran when you don't go, but yeah, show up and give it your best, and you surprise yourself. So I'll stop rambling here.
Fantastic. And I skipped a step, and I think a lot of you may be familiar with the race that we were talking about, but if you're not, 250 miles from Black Canyon City to Flagstaff, Arizona, and 38,000 feet of climbing, 39, depends on if you, what your watch says at the end of it, but a significant amount of climbing in an arid temperature, so that's why training is so critical, right? All right, Susie, how about you?
Well, my great friend who was my main crew person and pacer is Danielle, and she's not here because she lives in Arizona. And once, we figured out that we were both into trail running and that Aravaipa was in Arizona, we were like, oh, big adventure time, this is happening. And so we signed up for Javelina 100K for 2025. And as we started getting closer, we did that on New Year's Eve, that was big and exciting, we were signed up for this Aravaipa race, but as we got closer to May, she said, I think we should sign up for Cocodona 250. I can almost guarantee you it's gonna go lottery after this, which it did. And she was like, what's stopping us really? And I was like, I guess nothing, there's no qualifier, YOLO, let's do this. So when we signed up for that, we had you have a year to think about it, you're thinking about it. So in terms of training, we were looking forward to Javelina 100K. And so that was great for experiencing Arizona's climate and seeing the things and the cacti, even though, it's a lot different from the terrain of Cocodona that changes. But, it was a good first step and a good solid 100K. Then Kate knows I was obsessing about the whole loose line trail and doing that, which I know you guys do too. That's amazing. So that was a good motivator to do. That's really long, 66 or 8 miles or whatever it is on the loose line, and it's flat. And it just seemed like I needed to do this now. So for that long distance and going self-supported, that was the motivator for me to get my Salomon Luxe big backpack for, that I would need for Cocodona and carry the huge bladder. I'd never done that whole system, so it was a lot of gear and a lot of thinking and planning and carrying more stuff than I'd ever carried. And then it was 10 p.m. and I was like, peace out, kids, goodbye. And I started in Plymouth and I went to Cosmos, and then my husband very kindly picked me up the next day. That was a great training stimulus because I was alone for 18 hours. I was seeing eyes in the nighttime, and it was wild. But that gave me a lot of confidence. If I can trek all the way through the night, that's a good thing to be able to do. I participated in VertMiss, which was a virtual and real life vert contest through Aravaipa, which had me in the gym constantly in the month of December, and I was, climbing and just cranked up to 15 and the whole everything. So I podiumed in that, which is exciting because that's the only thing I'll ever podium in, but it was great. And then as we got closer, I did a 108-mile peak week, which was more than I'd ever run in a week, and I'm not fast, so it was like a full-time job that week. And then Kate very smartly was like, homie, we must run the Zumbro 50, and I was like, all right. And that was a midnight start, so like I got up early that day, I drove them to school, and I did all my normal things, and then I drank a Red Bull and drove out there. And we started at midnight, and it was really hard, and just exhausting when we got through that, and I thought that was an amazing thing to do. Like, that was perfect training. And then, oh God, there's more. Kate, I went to go train with Kate because I didn't know how to lift weights, and I was like a big weenie about it, and I couldn't. She was like, lift the kettlebell, and I was like, what? But I'm so much stronger now. Sunrise goodness. And yeah, that was a big deal for me because I needed a friend to work out with me, and I couldn't do it alone. So thank you. Welcome. The strength is going to stay. And okay, what else? Almost done. Oh, then one of my other friends who's doing Western States was like, are you doing your heat training? And I was like, no. And he said, he told me exactly what to do. He was like, you've still got time to sit in the sauna, because it was like 3 weeks left. So I joined a different gym that had a sauna and did some stair climber and then sat in the sauna. And I did that almost every day for the last like 3 weeks before the race, even though it turned out to be kind of cool weather. Ultimately, I'm sure it didn't hurt to do that. And then finally, when it got really close, I was like putting 6 liters of water in the pack and hiking up and down the steepest I could find. And that was it.
Yeah, that's a
Just
lot.
that.
Just that. No big deal.
So much goes into being able to do it, though. Yeah. All right, Kate.
So my training consisted of just a lot of consistency over time. So, I mean, yeah, we registered for this in May of 2025. I've run Superior 100 every year for like the last decade. So every year I'm training up for Superior 100. And so just consistency over time is sort of my biggest lever that I try to pull. I run basically 50-mile weeks year round. So I'm always running like 6 days a week. And then I was very, very dedicated to strength training, very dedicated to twice a week strength training. Like 1 day a week was like super, super heavy machine-based workouts. And then the second workout of the week was very much run specific, so a lot more single leg, some plyos, some more functional things, some very specific glute and running specific exercises. And then just coupled that with a little bit of time on the stair mill, a little bit of time in the sauna, and then just did that week after week after week after week without much variety. Like, it was like on Tuesdays, I had a threshold workout and I lifted heavy. Wednesdays, I just ran an hour and did the stair mill and sat in the sauna. And Thursdays, I ran with my friend. And Fridays, I ran and sat in the sauna and did the stair mill. And Saturdays was long run, and Sunday was long run, and Monday I rested. And like literally I did that since like October.
Yeah, we're friends on Garmin. I could see all of it every day. I knew what you wanted.
Yeah, I have no secrets. But just consistency day in and day out, week after week. And then adding just the years of doing the longer races. So.
And speaking of years of endeavors, what do you think helped the most, or what were you drawing from the most during the race? Would it be running? Would it be backpacking? Would it be just strength? I mean, what do you think really prepared you the best?
That's a good question.
That wasn't on the cheat sheet.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyone can jump in. Pacers too, those of us that have spent
I mean, I
many days
think
on
like for me, just being able to like just continue to keep moving forward. And like I knew I needed to eat, and that wasn't always something that came real easily, especially during Cocodona deeper in the race. But just kind of recognizing that like I had to get down fuel, as much as I complained and whined about it. I did know that that was sort of my lifeline, but just kind of like I think just the logical knowledge of like I have to eat to keep moving, and then just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and eventually that aid station will come, or eventually you'll get to where you think you're going, even if it doesn't look like you're getting there in a reasonable amount of time.
mental. Yeah. Great. All right, well, now let's hear your summary. We'd just love to hear from your perspective, how did your race go? And I know it's going to be impossible to hit everything that happened, so just the the key elements that you think you'll take with you for years, whether it's, what you were thinking along the way, or, the biggest obstacles that came into play, and, ultimately, how'd you get to the finish? Neil, let's start with you.
Yeah, I think going back to that last question too, hiking for me. I mean, I've known Louis for over a decade now, probably longer, and we've done a lot of backpack adventures throughout the Spear Hiking Trail, and so a lot of, I guess maybe the confidence is like, again, I'm kind of a middle of the pack runner. I don't run the whole time. I run to a certain point, then I'm like, I didn't train, so it's time to walk. And then it's just, it's a hike fest. And so I do like hiking. My feet stay relatively really good. I don't get blisters, usually. And I think that plays a big part into it. I kind of rambled to the last question. This is the summary of the race, right?
Yeah.
It was awesome. I don't think, going back to not training, I don't think about races until like maybe 4 days before they start, because otherwise I get stressed out, and I don't want to be stressed out from a race, so I just don't think about it. And then sure enough, it has to happen, and so then I start making a packing list a couple days before. I don't train with a pack as much as I like backpacking, and so I think the wear on my shoulders usually is a factor. That pressure of the weight, right? 6 liters of water is a lot. Appetite was really good. I was always hungry. I had 2 wonderful pacers. There's another gentleman, Ryan Cross, so him and Louis both did about 80 miles. We rented a van for the logistics part of it. I thought I'd be able to sleep in that van quite a bit more than I did. But I got about 13 hours of sleep, which, talking to a lot of people, is maybe twice the amount of most people in my general area. I never, it's beautiful. It's Arizona. You're at an awesome course, right? And so there's, I guess, sports celebrities there. And so that part kind of keeps your mind preoccupied as well. And so, it just kind of existed in the moment. I was able to do Vol State last year, again with Louis and his longtime girlfriend, Faye. So the trick of like picking X amount of miles per 12 hours, right, is helps me mentally. So it's like, well, I got to do, 30 miles. That was the goal for 2 days, and then it dropped down significantly. But right, having those benchmarks help you break down the race overall. And so it was really, really good. I probably should have trail napped a couple times. I got maybe cranky once with just where I'm like, I have to apologize to these guys, because they're just there, so they're the ones who get the brunt of the crankiness, where I'm just throwing my poles down, and.
You didn't do that. Did I? No, I don't think I did that.
We're close a couple times.
But yeah, overall, it's just beautiful. And so, the summary is it went well. I had, again, that ankle soreness came on earlier than I hoped it would, and that's where my stress comes from. It's not anything else. It's just like, what's going to happen with my body that I might not be able to control, and that's kind of preoccupies. I don't listen to music usually when I'm out there. I kind of exist in the moment, and I talk a lot about, people ask at work, is like, when you're home, you have, right, all your life stressors, like what needs to be fixed in the house, like what kids need to go to sports, what appointment you need to go to, all the things in life. But when you're out on the trail, especially for these longer events, and I experienced at Vol State really, but with hiking too, is like, you just exist in the moment of moving forward. And it's like, all you have to do is really eat and walk. And that's all you think about, eat, walk, what time, okay, I gotta eat now. And so it makes it very simple, so, yeah.
Was the distance the biggest challenge for you then, or you've done this distance before, or was there anything about the course that would have been, presented the biggest challenge?
The elevation.
The amount of climbing, or
the climbing. Just again, it's so hard to mimic that here. You're right. Afton State Park is probably the closest. Obviously we live close to Wolfsfeld and Woodrow, and but even it's, maybe 100 feet per mile. And again, like Mount Eldon, it's what, they have that back switchback is maybe 6 miles over 2,000 feet. And so you can kind of get that gradual descent if you're going down. We were going up, but the same thing. It's just, unfortunately, we don't have those real life training opportunities for terrain, but.
Yeah, for sure. You can kind of mimic the up on your treadmill, but you can't get the down.
Down,
People
no.
forget about that.
Yeah, someone needs to invent that.
Yeah. I've been thinking about that. I have not come up with an answer. We'll put our brains together. All right, Susie, what is your summary? How did your race go?
It was a real adventure. So I had my initial crew of 1 was Danielle, and we didn't have a van. We didn't have any other people. It was just us. And looking back, that was kind of a crazy approach to it. And there was probably a lot I didn't know that it's maybe good I didn't know, because things did work out, but I probably would have been a lot more stressed if I'd realized that like literally everybody had 4 people in a van. Did it not seem like that?
It was,
It was weird that we didn't, I don't know, we were like an outlier, I think. But like we were in great spirits, and it was really exciting at the start, but that whole thing about day 1 is that it's supposed to be the hardest day and you're trying to make it to Crown King. So I had a lot of like possible eventualities in my mind. I was like, it's possible I won't make it to Crown King, I don't know. And possibly I'll make it to 100 miles and that'll be it, but that's, I was like, that's good, that's a distance PR, like even if you flunk out there, that's okay. And so on and so forth. But also I had a hat picked out for the finish line, so like there was some part of me that thought I'd maybe make it. But day 1 I was like, I'm so relieved to be out here and just like doing this and seeing what happens. And because of the weather, it was like a gift that it didn't feel as god awful as they were saying it could. And I was really like delighted that it appeared that I could do this vert actually. And climbing that whole day and having fun and like talking to everybody at the back of the pack, and it was like we all had a similar plan, and it was like, okay, this is fine. And got to Crown King, felt really good. So that was like a huge boost. And then going into the first night, there was a really beautiful section into Arrastra Creek after that. So I was like, wow, maybe the hardest is behind me, and whatever. That was so smooth, whatever. Then we had to climb up Mount Union, and that was like really yucky, but still fine, like still in good spirits. And in day 2, I reached Whiskey Row, where you can get with your pacer. And I should have taken it more seriously, that I could like really lay down and sleep there, because I tried, but even in the back of my mind, I was like, you're not going to sleep, we gotta keep going, this is too fun. And so I closed my eyes, maybe I slept for like 45 minutes, I don't know, but I like ate a pizza and it was great, and we took off. Since Danielle was my literal only person, we had a plan that maybe she was gonna pace me now for the next 100 miles. And that was the mindset we were in. So we kept going through the Granite Dells and into Fane Ranch. That section was really,
It was
just
dumb.
It kept getting longer.
Right? Answer for
It just, we never ever were getting there.
You were not.
And they were like, oh, you might have to climb over like 1 or 2 fences over a barbed wire thing. Like it was like what, 10.
It was like 15.
So many. And like it was like, another one, oh my god. And like
As a pacer, every time I would come up to one, I was like, oh, damn it.
I didn't want to be in a negative headspace. This was like the first time probably I was getting crabby, because I was like, we'll never get there. And that was something that kind of plagued me throughout. I was like, we'll never get there. And we came into Fane Ranch, and my sister was there, having surprised me. Like I had no idea she was going to be there. She came from Los Angeles, and I was like, oh my god. And so that was kind of a pick-me-up. That actually really did help a lot, because it kind of just like snapped me out of whatever mental problem I was having. And then I was super excited to then leave Fane Ranch and go to Mingus Mountain, because the podcasters were going to be there with the basketball thing, and I was like excited to be excited about that. So it was a big climb up the mountain, and it was good. Like I was excited, and I was going to shower there, which I did, and it was great. But like I only slept for an hour, which was again just super dumb. Like there was nothing stopping me from sleeping longer, but I was like, we gotta keep going. And whatever. So the food was great there. We slept and we shot the hoops, and I made 2 out of 3, which was amazing. And then
Nice work.
For anyone who doesn't know,
How many hoops
there's
you made?
just
I made none. I didn't go down there. It was like, I was cold. I was like, I'm not going down there. I was tired.
there's just a basketball court at this aid
Yeah.
station, right?
Yeah.
This is not a normal part of a race, but
Well, it was
a nice little diversion, I think, right?
These podcasters were making a huge deal about it. It had like merch and its own leaderboard and all this stuff. So it was good. Then I refused to believe the hype about the descent from there. I was like, this is going to be fine. Even you and me had a conversation like
How technical can
yeah,
it
like
be?
how rocky could it be? We're from Minnesota. It was like dreadful, and it never ended. And I was moving so slowly, and like every mile that went by, I was like, the pace, the cushion, I can't. It's all going away. And my pacer was like, we were in 2 different headspaces. Like Danielle was so calm, and she was always like willing to like do the math, and I was like, that doesn't help if we'll never get there. So by the time we were getting into Jerome, I was like, dude, we're only staying here for 20 minutes. And she was like, I think that's a bad idea. And I was like, I don't care. And we got there, my sister was there again, and that's where we learned that a runner had passed away on the course. And so the energy in that aid station was crazy, because while we were like processing that information and only trying to stay there for 20 minutes, I think that was when Rachel Ettricken crossed the finish line. Mind you, like I was not even halfway there yet, but and it was kind of like historic and like a force field shot through Arizona, and then we kept going. Okay, sorry, I'm losing track of my notes here. Okay, so we lost some time. We kept going. The vibes were crazy. Okay, so now, did you, like the Cocodona cough? People were talking about the. Okay. Some people had like inhaled the desert and were like feeling ill. I think I was one of those people. Like my voice was going away. I had snot. It was terrible, and just like coughing and feeling like very bad. So Danielle started to feel like she was actually getting sick, and we now know that it was just that inhaling of the desert. But at Dead Horse, that was where we met Elizabeth. Suddenly Danielle comes running. She's like, I found somebody who can go with you so I can rest. And I was like, Hassan. And then Elizabeth came over, and I was like, dude, I know you. Because, you know, I know her from Backyard Ultra, so I was really excited. And she said, this is Elizabeth. She's in her 20s, I think. And I was like, cool.
Just only off by like 2 decades.
And we took off from Dead Horse.
Right?
So first section was great. We were having so much fun. It was like beautiful nighttime, whatever. And then the second section heading into Sedona, I became a zombie, and I was not there. Bye-bye. And you were just pulling me along. And
Describe zombie. Do you remember what happened here?
I started, things looked like things. I kept seeing things that I thought were tents that would be the water stop. I was like, oh, we're almost at the water. The water stop was like in the city. There was like nowhere near it on this mountain. So it was real slow going. I don't know, I just felt like I was moving at a snail's pace, and nothing I could do would make me go faster, even though, like, even when we got to the road in Sedona, there was no go-go there. But in Sedona, Elizabeth then had to go deal with like the car that she had left at Dead Horse, and I was supposed to sleep. And that was the most amazing sleep. I slept for 2.5 hours and on like a really comfortable cot, and the aid station volunteer was incredible, and was like, I was like monkeying around with all my gear and charging my stuff, and he was like, what are you doing? Why don't you go to sleep? And I was like, I'm almost ready. And he brought me pancakes with syrup, and then I went to sleep. And in the morning, I got all like kitted out. Why are you laughing? I got all kitted out. I stole one of Danielle's sun hoodies, and I felt great. Put on the ice bandana, and we like took off. And I kept saying, we were excited for the hangover trail. I was like, are we there yet? Is this it? Is it happening? And it was amazing. Like, it really happened. We climbed up boulders and mountains, and it was stunning, like 360 views. It was everything they said was true. And then after we got through that section, there was another huge climb to a water stop, and I said, do you think Danielle can come pick us up? And you were like, no. And I was like, the moods were up and down.
Pick you up like you want to be done?
Yeah, I was like, I was like, I think this might be it.
That was a good answer from your pacer.
She was really,
We'll just keep going.
let's just keep going, it's okay.
I think that's gonna happen.
Then we got to the place called Schnably, which was 100 miles from the place that Danielle started pacing me. So she had done 60 miles, and you did 44.
Yep.
And it was like the meeting of the minds came back together, and Elizabeth had to go on and do more volunteer work, so she was off to do that. And Danielle sent me to Munns. This would have been an amazing section. It was just like the flattest, most amazing section, but I kind of, again, like went into zombie mode and I couldn't figure out what to do. I like sat down, I got up, I looked at the bugs crawling on the ground and said I couldn't lay down, like that wasn't happening. Finally, I linked up with another runner and we like chatted our way into Munns. Great. I took a nap, had the full meltdown. This was the time where I like sat in the car and I was like, I can't go on, like it's all over. And Danielle was really calm and she was just like, just put your shoes on, we're gonna just get out of the car. And I opened the car door and I said, it's so cold. And she said, what does your daughter say when it's cold? She said, Mommy, if you're walking and it's cold, run. And I was like, oh God, I can't disappoint my daughter. It's like we kept going. It was so dramatic, like it was everything. And then like things turned around again, feeling really happy. Okay, then we got to Fort Tuthill, and that was when I started feeling like a boss, because that's mile 210, and I was like, the power is in me, like I got this, we're gonna do it. And you guys were both there. You took care of me like a racehorse and brought me McDonald's, and I left there. Oh, they give you a mental fitness check there, and they were like, oh no, what day is it? And I said, it's Friday. And they said, where are you going? And I think they wanted me to say Flagstaff, but what I said was walnut something, and they were like, okay, bye. And the section into walnut something, that was like a 16-mile section, and I was feeling really good, really positive, trying to like take gels, and my mouth had kind of like gone all terrible with like sores and bumps and stuff awful, but kept eating. Then somebody's pacer was out there, okay? And the pacer had been dropped by their runner, and then I was getting dropped by this pacer, and I was like, I can't keep up with this lady whose runner is going too fast for her, like how slow am I going? And I got into a bad mood, but I made it to, I'm sorry, this is so long, I'm almost done.
It's a long race.
It's a long race, exactly. I was starting to become irrational when I linked up with Danielle again, and I started saying, I'm never gonna make it, I'm never gonna make it. And she was like, but you are gonna, mathematically, you're definitely gonna make it. And I was like, no, and then she was like, get out. And so I left, and I left for Wildcat Hill, which was the last thing before you go over Mount Eldon. Got there, it's like pretty much fine. We kept dealing with the blisters on my feet, and it was like the end. And I was like, this is the mountain, this is it. But the mountain is like an unearthly place, and everybody was sleep deprived, and thank goodness I linked up with some runners who were people who and finished ahead of me. It's like amazing Indigenous runners, Missy and Greg, and this other lady, Ashley, who I'd been seeing pretty much. If I hadn't linked up with them, I don't know what I would have done, because I was scared. It was scary. And I was able to stick with them, and I was like, what is wrong with me right now? Because I was like, I can't believe how my legs are just climbing this mountain and it's okay, but mentally I was a lunatic, and I just don't know. Like, we laid down on the mountain a few times to nap, and it was really fortunate that I was able to stick with this group, because we made it to the top. And Missy, she had done the race before, and she really knew what was up. She kept checking her watch, and she was like, we really need to get up there by 5 a.m. So we were somewhere, and I was like, is this the top? And she was like, no, the top is over there.
It's not what you want to do.
And I knew that. I could see where people were, but I was like, maybe that's other people and we're not going over there. But we finally got to the top, and then the sun shot over the horizon, and it was like a light switch went on up there. It was like the second one ray of the sun comes over, everything changes, the whole sky flashes a different color, and it got warm. And everybody was kind of chilling at the top, and I was like, we gotta go, we're going, is anybody going? And I started the descent first, and then they all blew by me at a certain point. And when I finished the descent, I kind of checked out about time and space and pace and distance. And Danielle called me and was like, what are you doing? You're a little farther than you think from the aid station. And I really, this is probably one of my greatest regrets. I really wish I could have stayed calm in that moment and just sped up a little bit, like I could. But not only did I speed up, I also had a full mental breakdown, and kept her on the phone with me and kept asking her if my dot was moving and if she was watching me. And I said, I'm lost. I fell over, got up. It was it was the most dramatic. But I did get there, and the aid station volunteers were so understanding. I was like an insane person, and they were like, it's okay, you're good, you're here, it's fine. And I had to lay down on the ground for a second, and then I peeled off my hot layers and took off. and everything was okay. And then after that, I knew I was going to make it, and it was like incredible. Just incredibly happy, felt so accomplished, and so lucky to reach the finish line when there was a big crowd of excited people there. It was something I will treasure, and I put on my superior hat, and I felt good. Sorry for the long story.
Yeah.
So great.
All those emotions come because you trained so hard and you've been out there working so hard too. So thank you for walking us through that. Okay, Kate. Oh, is that me?
No, I think I just turned my mic on because they turned it off, so you might hear me like panting or something. Stories. So my Cocodona was, it was awesome. Hard stop. I had a wonderful crew. And I have to say, when I truly mean I couldn't have done it without them. I'm going to start preface this by like, I couldn't have done it without them. I would still be like wandering across Spain Ranch, you know, napping under an overpass or something. But overall, my experience was very good. I'm very proud of myself that I was able to finish it my first time, so I don't ever have to go back. I'm not writing off multi-day events, but somebody else can have my spot at Cocodona going forward. I struggled with the heat, even though it wasn't necessarily a hot year. That was probably one of my biggest issues. I broke out in heat rash pretty much on day 2 from my thighs to my feet, and felt like someone was taking a lighter to my legs anytime I was in the sun. So that was like kind of a bummer, because it did sort of cloud my experience. I will also preface my Cocodona experience by saying I also didn't get to think much about Cocodona before the race, because my mom passed unexpectedly in March. So I like really thought about Cocodona about like 10 days before the race started. So I had gotten in as much training as I could, and then took about 4 or 5 weeks to deal with that, and then was home a week and a half before we left for Cocodona. And that week and a half was like packing all my things, organizing my drop bags. Alicia came and helped me kind of put the wheels on the bus to get organized. And one of the things that I realized as I was on my way to Crown King is I had packed a drop bag for Camp Kippa, where I thought I was going to sleep. And I was going up to Crown King, and I got to thinking that, I don't actually think I packed any snacks in my drop bag. Packed a lot of things in that drop bag, but I don't remember putting any fuel in that drop bag. So when I got to Crown King, not only was my pack also tearing, my Ultraspire pack, I'd gotten to Lane Mountain, had a minor issue with it, and realized that it was ripping. Like the pack was coming apart from the straps. And so the Ultraspire reps, they were like, oh, no problem, we'll get you a new pack. And they did get me a new pack. They got me a size small, which I was like, this will be great. I thought my other one was too big, like it's fine. And they met me at Crown King, and we swapped all my stuff out of pack A into the new pack. And then I was like, oh, I also need to pack extra snacks, because I'm pretty sure I don't have any at Camp Kippa. And so we got everything into the new pack. Matt and Jeff had shown up, and I was all ready to go, and I go to put that new pack on, and I'm like, I'm so excited, because I'm like, the customer service has been great, Ultraspire is awesome, and I go to put the new pack on, and I literally can't move my arms. It is so tight, and like can't do up the straps, and I'm like, oh, this is a problem. And so I had packed a spare pack, just sort of pulled one out of my gear closet and threw it in the van, just in case. Well, the van's like more than a half a mile away uphill. So luckily, my pacer, Jeff, who was there, he ran back to the van. He got me a Solomon pack that I had, but I also needed different bottles. And because that pack wasn't as big, and I needed my extra snacks, I needed a waist belt. So he comes back with the next pack, all the bottles, the waist belt, and so then I have to I'll swap all my stuff now into this new pack. So I end up getting my new pack on versus my old pack, which is really worn out with the new bottles, waist belt, all the snacks, waist light, and my puffy like wrapped around my waist, so like head out into night 1. So that was kind of the first like thing that we sort of had to like pivot, and where I first realized that I was like, maybe I wasn't as organized as I had thought I was gonna be. Headed out into the first night, which I was a little worried about, just because like I'm not worried about being out in the night alone, but I was a little worried about route finding. I've done a lot of training and a lot of running on the Superior Hiking Trail where you just follow the blue blazes and it's real straightforward. And so I was like, well, I had the maps downloaded, but I don't see real well at night. And anyway, I had some concerns about that first night, but fortunately was able to hook up with a couple other runners. I also thought it was only 8 miles to Arasta Creek, and it was 14. So that was a little bit of a like, oh, I guess we're gonna keep going. And so still had a really nice time with these 2 other runners, and the miles did pass by pretty uneventfully. And then we had heard that there was a bit of a climb to Camp Kippa, and I was like, oh, okay. So my new friend Daniel and I headed out, and the gravel road we'd been on started to climb, and we're like, this isn't so bad. Until it was, and the trail turned off and started going up. And I think I left a part of my soul on Mount Union, because I was not expecting the climb to be what it was. And this is where like, one of the things, my takeaways is like expectations versus reality. And when the expectations and reality aren't the same, is when like mentally it gets really tricky. And so climbing up Mount Union, I was just like in the hurt locker. I'm generally a very strong climber, and I had climbed really well, but I hadn't eaten and just started to run out of steam. And it was one of those sections where like you'd go around the mountain and you'd be hot, and then you'd go around the mountain again and you'd be in the wind and you'd be icy cold. So it's like temperature regulation was really tricky there. And I just needed to get to Camp Kippa because I was like, okay, when I get there I can rest. But the miles were taking a very, very long time. But I eventually got there, did not have any snacks in my drop bag. So I had to started using aid station fuel, which I didn't train with any of that aid station fuel, but I was like, well, this will be fine. And it was. And got to Whiskey Row, met up with my crew, was super excited to see them. And then Alicia and I spent the next day together, all of Tuesday across Fain Ranch. I went into Fain Ranch on fumes, like I was completely out of gas, walking across the desert with heat rash on your legs and having trouble eating already was really tough. Stupid Fain Ranch and all those dang ladders. And I slept at Fain Ranch. That was probably my first like real sleep, was at Fain Ranch. And I think I slept there for a couple of hours, and that was just absolutely glorious. Left Fain Ranch. I think I saw Susie on my way out, which was such a highlight. Climbed Mount Eldon, which went really well. Mingus, yeah.
Not at Alden yet.
I was not at Eldon yet. Mingus. Threw some basketballs and hit the rim on each one, which I thought was a good deal.
It's points.
Yeah. And then the descent off Mingus was super rocky, but again, I wasn't super worried about it. We got down, it was tons and tons of rocks. We had a beautiful sunrise there on the morning of day 3, and that was really special and meaningful. Got into Jerome, had some miles with my coach Jeff, and got to cross the Verde River, which was amazing. Like, I've never so looked forward to a river crossing in my life, other than like when you're in the desert. That was super cool. Got a massage at Dead Horse, right? Was that Dead Horse?
Yes.
Deer Park, Dead Horse.
Dead Horse.
Dead Horse. Got a massage at Dead Horse. Also, like, who does that? That's amazing. And then you and I headed out again.
We did.
We had another very, very long section with more probably lows than highs.
She didn't throw her pole, but it came close.
Yeah, it was, the whole thing was just this like, the course is so vast, and you see like where you're going, and you can see where you've been, and like you're like, okay, well that's where we're going. We're going across this field. We're going up that mountain, and you just don't know how you're gonna get there. And so it was just kind of managing those expectations of like just taking the next step and just allowing the course to like show you what you needed to learn. And it just kept constantly testing me. It kept testing my patience, and allowing me to just like, who am I when things get hard? But we got through it one step at a time. The hot days were the hardest for me. Like, that's probably when I got the lowest, was just because I just felt like I was on fire. I said that I cried equal opportunity crying with all of my pacers. They all got tears. I got to Fort Tuthill. Well, actually, after the 14-mile solo section, after Schnebly, I had 14 miles by myself, and I made a couple phone calls in that section. I was in really good spirits, and I was talking to my friend Carrie as I was getting close to the aid station. I remember telling her that, you know, I'm gonna get to the next aid station. I'm gonna sleep for 3 hours. I was so excited, and I was like, I might even wash my hair. Like, I'm gonna sleep in the van, I'm gonna wash my hair, I'm gonna do all these things, it's gonna be great. And I get there, and Matt's the only one there, he's got the van, and he's like, you get 90 minutes. I was like, wait, what? Expectation, reality, not the same. So sure enough, he got me up after 60 minutes of sleeping and sent me out on my way. Had some really dark points that night. Fell asleep on the trail, eyes really back in my head, had to take a dirt nap. But it was really like, I think the one point I got to at Fort Tuthill, when I was coming in, and my carrot after that long night and sleeping on the trail with my pacer Jeff, was coming into Fort Tuthill thinking, I get to sleep in my van. I was like, I'm gonna sleep in the van. And I get there, and Alicia's like, you're sleeping in the aid station. And I was like, no. And I'm gonna say it just like I said it to Matt, because Matt then was walking up to me, and I said to him, I want to sleep in my van. And Matt's like, let me go move the van. And Alicia's like, don't move the van. So they tossed me in like a zero gravity chair and covered me up with blankets and told me to like cover my eyes and shut up. Which I did.
Was that to keep you moving more quickly? Was that to save time, or what was the reason for
So
that
they had
harsh
done,
treatment?
I know, it was so mean, so mean. So they had done the math, and because the last 18 miles up and over Mount Eldon we have to do by ourselves, they wanted to bank as much sleep prior to that 18-mile section as possible. And so while I had been sort of like with enough of a buffer for the cutoffs, they wanted to make sure that I wasn't too backed into a corner on that and could get some good sleep prior to that 18 to 19 mile section. So they had done all the logistics and were managing me very well. And so I did nap in the chair. Friday was really hard again. We spent a lot of time a long 16-mile section with no water, no aid in the heat of the day. That was really, really trying. And then from there, it wasn't necessarily easier, but I think once I got to that last crude aid station and I got some sleep and I got some good food, there was sort of that light at the end of the tunnel. And I knew I had one job, and my one job was to get up and over Mount Eldon and get to the finish line unscathed. And I actually left that aid station probably feeling the best I'd felt in days. And was like the most alert and just felt really, really good. Got to the top of Mount Eldon and started the descent, which was just what everybody had said, very chunky, very challenging, very technical. And I was like, I don't know, this is like the Superior Hiking Trail. I got this. And Cocodona was like, hold my beer. And literally after thinking that, I was like, thinking to myself, like, I got this, like, okay, we're good. I hit some loose rock and like broke my hiking pole, fell on my arm, like came crashing down on the ground, and I was like, okay, well then. So then I had a broken pole, so I ended up just having to put both of them away and just go hand on rocks and sort of like pick my way down, which just took what felt like a really, really long time. And then
Your dog felt like a long time.
yeah, exactly. I did end up texting them at one point and just saying to the crew, just like, this is taking longer, but I'm fine. Because I knew that, especially Matt for sure, was very concerned that there was not sleeping on the crew's behalf. So, and the last aid station was, of course, way further than I thought it was going to be, that my trail map was allowing for. Right? It was not where I expected it. But one foot in front of the other, we got there, and then for whatever reason, those last few miles, like before reaching the paved streets of Flagstaff, just went, like in my head when I think back on them, they went like that. They went so fast. I'm like, how was that 4 miles? Because 4 miles in any other reality of this race took like the entire day. But those 4 miles went by in a heartbeat. So yeah, overall, it was a great experience, and I really, truly, I'll say this until my last breath, my crew is everything. And I truly owe it to them because they did all the heavy lifting and I just had to show up and they took such good care of me.
Incredible. Yeah, sounds like they did a great job keeping you moving. And it's hard to think when you're that tired, I'm sure. So, also, I can't imagine how it felt to fall that late in a race. Like, everything hurts already anyway, so incredible. Well, speaking of crew, I want to hear from you guys each. There's really kind of a two-part question for you. I'm curious, as an observer, did it look different, what your runner was experiencing, than the way it felt to them? And then the second question would be, this is totally a different question, but I'm just curious how you manage the logistics of this, because it's such a beast. So, Jeff, let's start with you.
Sure. So yeah, from did it look different in the reality of it versus what it might have looked like if you're just watching the dots? I would say yes, it probably did. The race organization itself does a really good job. They had 5 days straight of live coverage of this event. But when you're out there doing the reality of one foot in front of the other, there's ups, there's downs, emotionally as well as the course itself giving you the ups and downs. So yeah, just being able to kind of work through that as a pacer, I knew that whenever myself or Ryan, when we would have our little transition period of time, we do a quick debrief. If I was coming off the trail with him, I would do a quick debrief of like, he said that his left ankle is hurting right now, the bottoms of his feet are still hurting, just keep an eye on that. He's taken aspirin or Tylenol at this point, took some caffeine here. So we were just trying to be efficient with how we were somewhat responsible for his time when we were out there with him. But yeah, it had to have felt different. It's just that sleep deprivation and yeah, just the ups and downs that we got to experience along with Neil, and then help to make sure that he stays in the right headspace. The things that were really encouraging when we were pacing Neil, he did get a good amount of sleep, but he was always the one that was able to make the decision on how long he wanted to sleep for. And then Ryan and I would kind of do the back of the napkin math to figure out, yep, does this make sense? And then there was never once that, I think you only actually had your alarm go off once at the top of Mingus Mountain after sleeping. But every time after that, you would say, all right, I'm going to lay down for 2 hours. If I'm not asleep in 30 minutes, I'm just going to get up and go. And somewhere between that 30 minutes and 2 hours, you were able to get a little bit of sleep. And then I know on the last aid station before we sent you up over Mount Eldon, Brian and I were just sitting outside the RV, just letting Neil sleep in the air conditioning in the RV for a little while. And then we didn't hear him get out of the bed. He just put on his shoes and started getting ready, and then he just popped out the door and said, well, I'm going to go walk over that mountain now. So yeah, it's a lot different just being in the moment, but it was a very well put together event. And then from a logistics standpoint, it made it pretty easy since there was only 2 of us that were trading duties on crew and pacing. If you weren't with Neil, then you're just leapfrogging the RV to the next spot that you can meet up with them. I somehow ended up on most of the sections where there weren't crew accessible locations, so I think I had a little bit of a benefit of, instead of having a 12 or a 16 mile section where I would expect to meet them, I would be going 30 miles down the trail or 25 miles down the trail. So I think I was able to get a little bit bigger chunks of sleep, but and try and let Neil know how much sleep I was actually getting up there. So, but yeah, and then some of the things that, how we planned it on paper versus the reality of it. When we got down to Arizona, so Neil and I mentioned we did Ball State last year, so it's an event that goes across the state of Tennessee. And during that event, you're more or less self-supported, so you get really used to eating gas station food. And so we just stopped at Walmart before the race began to pick up food. So instead of the gel packets and all the high performance race fuel, we're doing things like zebra cakes and Swiss cake rolls. And we got into Crown King the first time that we got to see Neil after the race started, so 35, 36 miles in, and he was already at the point where like, the zebra cakes and the Swiss cake rolls aren't working for me. We got to find a new fuel option for me. So, but yeah, just managing all those expectations, then knowing some of the things that are super annoying for me when I'm out running. I was always making sure that Neil's emptying out his garbage, because I hate leaving an aid station and then you're 3 miles down the trail and you're realizing you're still carrying the garbage you've been carrying for the last 15 miles, and it's just something that sits in the back of your head. So, but yeah, overall it was good. I don't know if I answered both the questions during that rambling there or not.
Yeah,
I
I hear
carried a
you.
burrito in my pocket.